All right, so let's dive into something that's been kind of sparking a lot of conversation lately. Um, and that is how men and women are kind of navigating this whole approaching thing in the dating world.
Mm.
So we've got this intriguing Reddit post. It argues that as women have become more open about, their not so great experiences with men, that the good guys, the ones who want to approach respectfully, have kind of stepped back a little bit.
Mhm.
And so you're left with this idea that the guys who are maybe a little less considerate are kind of the only ones left out there.
Yeah.
I don't know, has that been your experience at all?
Well, it's certainly a perspective, and as with anything you find online, it's definitely sparked a pretty heated debate. I think what's interesting here is that while the post really tries to simplify things, into these good guys and bad guys, the comment section actually reveals a much more nuanced picture. It's definitely not as black and white as the original poster might suggest.
Yeah, and some of the comments really push back on those labels, don't they? Like a lot of
Uh,
people are saying that women are contributing to this whole dynamic by not engaging with men who do approach them respectfully, whether it's in person or online. It's like there's this whole other layer of complexity when you bring in things like dating apps and how people interact on social media.
Oh, absolutely. You've got some commenters, particularly those from older generations. They're kind of reminiscing about a time when approaching someone in person was more the norm. Like we had a 58-year-old man and 51-year-old woman who both chimed in talking about how that was just how things were done. But, they also acknowledged that it wasn't a perfect system. And there were definitely challenges even back then.
Right? But now, you've got younger generations like the millennials and Gen Z, and they seem to feel a lot less comfortable with those kinds of in-person interactions. Some of them are even saying that they find it harder to read social cues because they've grown up communicating so much online. And then, of course, you throw the whole COVID-19 pandemic into the mix.
Mhm.
And it probably threw another wrench into things, too.
Yeah, for sure. It's like there's been this unintentional social experiment happening where technology has, on one hand, connected us, but it's also made us more hesitant about these face-to-face interactions. It's fascinating how that plays into the whole dynamic of approaching someone you're interested in.
For sure. And then you bring in the perspectives from women, and it gets even more interesting. A couple of them, a 38-year-old and a 51-year-old,
Mm.
both said that they are totally open to being approached. But the key is that the guy has to be respectful and accepting if she's not interested, because nobody wants to feel pressured or like they can't say no.
Yeah. That's such a crucial point.
Yeah.
It's about respecting boundaries and understanding that a no is a no. And there's no need to take it personally. It's about respecting someone else's agency and their right to choose.
Right. But then some women are pushing back on the idea
Hmm.
that men should always be the ones doing the approaching. They're saying, hey, we can be more direct. We can take the initiative too. So it's like this whole dance of who approaches, who is getting re-choreographed right before our eyes.
And that's what makes this whole conversation so compelling. It's not just about men approaching women. It's about how we as a society are navigating these evolving gender roles and expectations, especially in the context of dating.
So if this whole good guys retreating thing is actually happening, I mean, what could that mean for the dating landscape as a whole?
Mhm.
Some of these comments get pretty intense about the potential consequences.
Yeah. There's one commenter who suggests a possible link between this dynamic and the rising suicide rates among men. It's a really sobering thought, and it makes you wonder about the pressures and anxieties that men are facing in the dating world.
Yeah, it really does make you think, and another commenter pointed out, that if this pattern keeps going,
Hmm.
it could create a situation where the guys who are maybe less sensitive to women's boundaries end up being more, quote, unquote, successful in the dating world. That's like almost a self-fulfilling prophecy, which wouldn't be good for anyone.
Exactly. It's this complex web, and I think a lot of it comes down to fear. You see men expressing fear of being misinterpreted, of being labeled as creepy. Even when their intentions are totally good, that fear can be paralyzing, especially with how quickly things can escalate online.
Right. And then on the flip side, you've got women sharing their fears
Hmm.
about being approached by men who maybe do have bad intentions,
Hmm.
especially when they're out in public. It's
Yeah.
like this undercurrent of anxiety. That makes it so hard to just relax and be open to meeting new people.
Right, and that fear on both sides.
Yeah.
It can create a real climate of mistrust. It makes it hard to read signals, to be vulnerable, to take a chance on someone. It's like everyone's walking on eggshells,
Yeah.
worried about saying or doing the wrong thing.
Yeah, it makes you wonder if technology, which is supposed to make connecting easier, has actually made it harder in some ways. Like, dating apps, they give you this illusion of control, but they also kind of encourage this superficiality, and they make it so easy to just ghost someone. without any real consequences.
That's a really important point. While those apps can be great for expanding your options and meeting people you wouldn't otherwise encounter, they can also create a sense of detachment. It's easy to forget that there's a real person with feelings and vulnerabilities on the other side of that screen.
It's almost like we're trading in genuine human interaction for perfectly curated profiles
Yeah.
and witty banter. We're so focused on presenting this like ideal version of ourselves that we forget to be authentic and vulnerable, which are essential for building a real connection, you know?
And that lack of authenticity, it can make it even harder to decipher someone's true intentions. It's like trying to read a book where half the pages are missing. You get these little snippets of information, but you don't really see the whole picture.
So what does this all mean for the future of dating? Are we doomed to this cycle of fear and mistrust? Or is there a way to break through and find genuine connection?
Well, I don't think we're doomed at all, but it's definitely going to take a conscious effort to shift the narrative. We need to acknowledge the valid fears on both sides, but also recognize that those fears shouldn't prevent us from being open to connection.
Yeah, I think that's a great point. We need to find that balance between being cautious and being open to new experiences. And maybe, just maybe,
Right.
we need to relearn how to communicate with each other face to face, to read those subtle cues, and to appreciate the beauty of imperfection.
Absolutely. And as we kind of wrap up this deep dive, it leaves us with some pretty big questions to ponder.
Like, has technology in some ways made it harder to connect on like a deeper level? And are we, maybe without even realizing it, prioritizing safety and control over those spontaneous moments that used to lead to, something real? Is definitely something to think about, especially as we navigate this crazy world of modern dating.
Those are such great questions. And honestly, there are no easy answers. It really does seem like the rules of the game are constantly changing. And everyone's just trying to figure out how to play. Maybe the key is finding that sweet spot,
Hmm.
between embracing the tools that are out there, but also remembering the importance of putting ourselves out there, vulnerabilities and all.
Yeah, that's a great way to put it. And maybe part of that is remembering to like step away from the screen sometimes and engage with the world around us. You never know what unexpected connection might be waiting just around the corner.
Exactly. Sometimes the most meaningful encounters happen when we least expect them. It's about being open to those possibilities and trusting that even if things don't always go according to plan,
Mhm.
there's something valuable to be learned from every interaction.
I love that. Well, this has been such an eye-opening conversation. It's amazing how a single Reddit post can spark such a deep dive into the complexities of modern dating.
It really is. And, it highlights how important it is to have these conversations, to share our experiences, and to learn from each other. After all, we're all in this together.
Couldn't agree more. And for those of you who enjoyed this deep dive into the world of dating and relationships, be sure to subscribe to Voices of the Soul for more thought-provoking conversations.
And if you're looking for even more insights on personal growth and navigating the human experience, be sure to check out Shauna Pelage's YouTube channel. You'll find tons of great content there.
Until next time, keep those hearts open, keep those minds curious, and keep diving deep. We'll see you on the next deep dive.